Good morning. I'm Winnie Byanyima, the Director of UNDP Gender Team. I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to be with you again at the Asia Pacific Gender Community of Practice meeting. Today, I will briefly touch on two corporate priorities that will impact our work in coming years. First, it is the recent United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development that happened in Rio, and the ongoing discussions on a post-2015 Global Sustainable Development Agenda, and secondly, the preparation for the next UNDP strategic plan for the period 2014 to 2017 and its accompanying gender equality strategy. On the first priority, we are now at a critical moment in defining a common development trajectory for the years to come. While we continue to help countries achieve the Millennium Development Goals, we are looking beyond the 2015 deadline to define a new global development framework that will drive progress for years to come. The UN Conference on Sustainable Development in Rio, better known as Rio Plus 20, brought forth a new vision for the Global Development Agenda. Member states asserted that sustainable development is the only viable path forward. In doing so, they defined sustainable development broadly, emphasizing that it is as much about eliminating inequalities, reducing poverty, and creating jobs as it is about protecting the environment. Throughout the negotiations in UNDP, we have been promoting what we call triple wins policies and programs, which advance the three dimensions of sustainable development: economic, social, and environmental simultaneously. We have demonstrated that when thinking about sustainable development, we cannot position economic, social, and environmental strands as trade-offs against each other, but rather we must take into account their interconnectedness. We have also sought to demonstrate that the vision for sustainable development has a strong gender dimension. We continue to articulate gender equality and the empowerment of women as a core development goal in itself and as a catalyst for reaching all other goals. We continue to confirm and to adduce the evidence to confirm that any investment we make in women and girls will have multiplier effects across these three dimensions. A number of processes have been put in place to consult and define the post-2015 Global Development Agenda. My team and I are exploring key entry points to ensure that gender equality is taken fully into account. I will quickly provide a brief outline of the post-2015 processes, but I encourage all of you to discover more detailed information on our teamwork space. First, there's the high-level panel of eminent persons, which is tasked to provide member states with a vision of the new Global Development Agenda. This vision will be informed by the major outcomes from all the other processes. The panel is composed of 26 members and has 3 co-chairs. One of the co-chairs is the President of Indonesia. It also has a number of prominent policymakers from Asia-Pacific region. Second, there is an intergovernmental working group to be announced during the forthcoming General Assembly session. This will help guide the process of preparing the Sustainable Development Goals, and it will work closely with members of the high-level panel. Third, The United Nations Development Group, UNDG, is supporting 3 key initiatives to facilitate the inclusion of different perspectives from around the world. These are national level post-2015 dialogues in developing countries, including 10 in your region: Bangladesh, China, India, Indonesia, Laos, PDR, Pakistan, Papua New Guinea, Solomon Islands, Timor-Leste, and Vietnam. These consultations are led by UNDG in coordination with national authorities, partners, and UN country teams, yourselves. The consultations have already begun and will continue until the end of the first quarter of 2013. Second, 9 global thematic consultations, including one on inequalities, led by UNICEF and UN Women. It will have a major conference in Copenhagen next year. These consultations involve academia, the private sector, civil society, and other decision makers. Third, a web platform that utilizes social media to allow billions of people to be involved in the discussions. All of these processes provide critical entry points to shape the post-2015 Sustainable Development Agenda. At the global level, we are working to integrate gender equality by continuing our capacity building efforts, participating in the discussions, and bringing new tools and evidence from research. For example, on the 27th of September, during the General Assembly, Gender Team will be launching a new publication that is entitled Gender Equality, Economic Development, and Environmental Sustainability. The publication includes a series of papers on various development challenges such as climate change, agriculture and food security, property rights, consumption patterns, and education, all seen through the lens of gender equality. We are also working with a group of global experts to frame specific goals, targets, and indicators, and identify data sources for the Sustainable Development Goals. I will keep you updated on these developments through Kim, your regional practice leader. Most importantly, you all must continue the incredible work you are doing already, working with other practices to find integrated solutions to the development challenges in your countries. We must strike strategic partnerships with poverty, governance, and crisis units so that we are able to bring a gender perspective throughout a project cycle. Resources, expertise, and space in decision-making are critical for effective gender mainstreaming. Do not be shy to insist on them. I encourage you to actively participate in the consultations that I have just outlined and ensure that women's voices and gender expertise are represented there. We must arrive at a new global development framework that has stronger buy-in from the women's movement than we had with the Millennium Development Goals. This is our challenge. The Gender Team is here to support you and provide any guidance that you may need as you struggle to engage in these very important processes. Let me now talk about the preparations for the next UNDP strategic plan and the gender equality strategy. In 2007, the Gender Team led the organization in developing UNDP's first corporate gender equality strategy. For the first time ever, the organization had a clear roadmap on how to integrate gender in corporate priorities with very concrete gender-sensitive indicators to measure progress. The focused efforts of the last few years have resulted in significant program successes. We also put in place institutional mechanisms for building capacity and holding the whole organization accountable for gender equality. Looking back 5 years ago, we can proudly say that we have successfully driven an ambitious, transformative agenda in UNDP. Several reviews have testified to that, such as the recent MOPAN, Multilateral Organization Performance Assessment Network, which rated UNDP as very strong for its gender mainstreaming efforts. We are in many ways trailblazers of the UN system on gender mainstreaming. Other UN agencies are learning from us. For instance, UNDP's gender marker was declared a best practice by the UN Secretary General and is being replicated by other UN entities. Congratulations to all of you. It has been our collective achievement, the gender community of practice globally. But there's more work to be done. We cannot rest as we prepare the next UNDP Strategic Plan 2014-2017 and its Gender Equality Strategy 2. We must build on these gains and take UNDP to the next level of gender mainstreaming. A series of workshops and consultations on the next strategic plan will happen between August and December here in New York. In February and March next year, board members will be informally consulted on a preliminary draft of the strategic plan. The administrator will present a detailed plan to the executive board at its second regular session in June next year. Then, during July and August, the organization will engage with member states to build support. The final draft will then be presented to the board in September 2013. That is the plan. Now, the process of developing the Gender Equality Strategy 2 is in parallel with the strategic planning process. We have begun the initial phase of our consultations at the beginning of this year. A first meeting was held with selected resident representatives and country office program staff, including from Bhutan. We held this meeting in New York in June 2013. Then in August this year, we organized an expert group meeting in Croatia, where we brought together leading global gender experts to discuss the current development context and the emerging challenges and priorities for UNDP in advancing gender equality and women's empowerment. My colleague Suki Beavers will present the main conclusions later in your workshop. The next steps of defining the gender equality strategy will involve an e-discussion, which we will launch later this month. I strongly encourage you to share your views and your expertise on the teamwork space dedicated to the development of our new gender equality strategy. The development of the strategy will also leverage the knowledge of regional gender advisors and UNDP bureaus and practices to shape the substantive focus. A series of consultations with these groups will happen between October and December this year in New York. The first draft of the strategy will be ready in February 2013, and we plan to organize a global gender community of practice to review the draft in March 2013. And by June 2013, we should have finished the first and final draft of the gender equality strategy. It will then be presented along with the strategic plan to the executive board in September 2013. These are important opportunities for us to take UNDP, as I said, to the next level of gender mainstreaming. Our administrator, Helen Clark, reminded us when she intervened at the session of the Executive Board last week that in today's very challenging global environment, an effective and results-oriented UNDP, responsive to country needs, is more important than ever. We should move beyond reporting on what we are doing and where, towards understanding what is proving most effective at supporting transformational change and in what contexts. This is what we have to bring in the new strategy. Lastly, I would like to assure you of the support of the Global Gender Team and look forward to your views on how we can further strengthen our support to your region and how we can engage with you even more as we move forward into a new planning cycle. I wish you a successful Community of Practice annual meeting. Thank you.